Welcome back to Pause and Respond. I'm Josua Rine, licensed professional counselor. And today we're talking about the real reason most people struggle with honesty. And it's not because they don't know what they feel. Most people actually do know. They know when they feel hurt, dismissed, disconnected, overwhelmed, and resentful. The problem is not awareness of their feelings. The problem is fear. And fear changes the message. Fear edits the response. It softens boundaries. It minimizes emotion, changes wording, and creates a filter. And after enough time, people stop communicating from honesty, and they begin to start communicating from self-protection. And that's what we're unpacking today. Because many people are not struggling with communication skills. They are struggling with the fear attached to honest communication. One of the biggest lies people tell themselves is, I just don't know how I feel. And sometimes, yes, that's true. But many times people know exactly what they feel, almost immediately. They might not always know why, but they just do not trust themselves enough to communicate it honestly. You can see this happen in real time. Somebody says something hurtful. Internally, the nervous system reacts instantly. But then the filtering process begins. It sounds like maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe I should just let it go. It's not worth bringing this up. Maybe it's I'll just deal with it myself, or I don't want them upset with me. Notice what happened in those statements. The emotional truth was present immediately, but fear is what edited it. And that's why so many people live disconnected from their own voice. Not because they lack their own thoughts, but because they repeatedly override themselves, and eventually they allow it to become automatic. One of the deepest fears underneath emotional filtering is rejection. Human beings are relational by nature. So connection matters to us psychologically. Belonging matters psychologically. And because of that, many people learn in life that honesty can feel risky. Maybe honesty led to criticism growing up. Maybe emotional expression was even ignored or punished. It could have been mocked or dismissed. So the nervous system learned being fully honest may threaten connection with others. And that creates survival-based filtering. People start asking, what response keeps me accepted, instead of what response is actually true. And the longer somebody lives this way, the more emotionally fragmented they become internally. Because now their communication is built around emotional safety instead of emotional honesty. And this is one reason people-pleasing becomes so emotionally exhausting. You are constantly abandoning your own internal experience in order to maintain the external stability of others. And that creates nervous system fatigue over time. Now, fear does not always silence people completely. Sometimes it simply just shrinks the communication. People say smaller versions of what they actually mean. Instead of saying that hurt me, it becomes it's okay. Instead of I need more support, they say I'm fine. Instead of that crossed a boundary, they say don't worry about it. And over time, people become experts at emotional minimization. But minimizing feelings does not minimize their impact, and that's important. The nervous system will still experience the emotional fully internally, even when the external communication is watered down. And that is why emotional suppression creates internal tension. Your body still carries what your mouth edited. A lot of people are emotionally exhausted because they are filtering themselves all day long. They filter at work and their relationships with family, with friends. They're constantly monitoring themselves for tones and responses and expressions. Maybe they're bothered by word choices or other people's reactions. And that creates enormous psychological strain. And many people do not even realize how disconnected they've become from authenticity because filtering has become the normal. But authenticity is psychologically lighter than performance. When your internal world and external communication are constantly misaligned, the nervous system experiences tension. And that tension eventually becomes anxiety, mental exhaustion, resentment, overthinking, emotional numbness, or even emotional explosions. Because emotional contradiction is hard to sustain long term. Now, here's the important part. Honesty often feels uncomfortable at first because honesty creates vulnerability. And vulnerability feels risky to the nervous system, especially for those who have learned that being honest creates pain. So even healthy honesty can initially trigger anxiety, and that's normal. But avoiding honesty does not remove the discomfort. It simply delays it, and delayed discomfort often becomes larger discomfort later. And this is why people eventually explode emotionally after staying quiet too long. Or they emotionally disconnect from relationships they never communicated honestly inside of. Or become resentful towards people who were never clearly informed about what was happening internally. Fear protected short-term conflict, but at the expense of long-term clarity. Now, honesty does not mean emotional dumping, and that's important. Some people avoid honesty because they associate honesty with aggression. But honesty and reactivity are not the same thing. Reactivity says, I'm going to emotionally unload this immediately. Honesty says, I'm going to communicate this clearly and responsibly. And that's a major difference. Healthy honesty is regulated. It's intentional. It's clear. It's not explosive or impulsive or cruel. And this is why emotional intelligence is not about suppressing truth. It's about learning how to communicate truth without losing control of yourself. And this is where the pause and respond framework changes everything. Because instead of automatically filtering yourself or automatically just reacting, you pause. And during that pause, you ask yourself, what am I actually afraid of right now? And that question matters because many communication problems are actually fear problems. Fear of rejection, fear of conflict, abandonment, or judgment, fear of disappointing others, or emotional exposure. Then after you identify the fear, you communicate anyway, not recklessly, but clearly. And that may sound like, honestly, this is uncomfortable for me to say. Or maybe it's, I think I've been afraid to bring this up. Or I don't want resentment to build around this. That kind of communication builds self-respect internally. Because every time you communicate honestly with regulation, you reinforce internal trust. Many people do not trust themselves emotionally anymore because they have spent years overriding what they actually feel. They've been minimizing themselves, silencing themselves, and filtering themselves. And eventually the nervous system starts to learn, my feelings are not safe to express. And that creates internal disconnection. But honesty rebuilds self-trust Not because every conversation goes perfectly, but because internally you stop abandoning yourself. And that changes confidence, it changes relationships, and it changes overall emotional stability. Because self-respect increases when honesty and behavior become aligned. Now, the goal is not becoming emotionally fearless. The goal is becoming honest enough that fear no longer completely controls your communication. Because courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is honesty with regulation despite having the fear. And emotionally healthy people still feel nervous sometimes. They still feel vulnerable. The difference is they no longer allow that fear to silence truth. And that's emotional maturity. Today, I want you to notice where fear is filtering your communication. Where are you shrinking what you actually mean? Where are you avoiding honesty because you're afraid of tension, rejection, or discomfort? And what would healthier honesty look like in those situations? Awareness is where emotional clarity begins. So if this episode connected with you, the new book, Pause and Respond, The Honesty Advantage, goes much deeper into these concepts: emotional honesty, communication, resentment, learning how to communicate clearly without becoming reactive. You can get the books, workbooks, podcast resources, and coaching information at pauseandrespond.com. And if this episode helps you, share it with someone who constantly filters themselves out of fear of conflict or rejection. Because many people are not struggling with honesty itself. They're struggling with the fear attached to honesty. This is Pause and Respond. Less reaction, more choice.